Hello and welcome to Hudson's County. I'm glad you could join us again today for another TTRPG Talk. This series discusses tabletop role-playing games and related materials, suggests ideas for your own games, and takes a look at some of my own materials. Today, we're going to be continuing the SRD series with a look at the Hopes and Dreams SRD that René-Pier of FariRPG has released along with their TTRPG of the same name. The original Hopes and Dreams game is what I would describe as Hopepunk, with a grungy, magitech industrial age city dominated by an oppressive council with the support of enforcer automatons. Hopepunk is a term that may be familiar to those of you on the TTRPG scene who have watched most things produced by the Streampunks or Rule of Lore, especially Callisto 6, the Shield of Tomorrow Clear Skies sort of Star Trek timeline, or Infinite Horizons. Any of those games I feel could have been run using this system or one very much like it, though a number of the mechanics do feel more akin to the Resistance style of game rather than Cypher or Modifius' 2D20 systems that the previous actual plays I just mentioned were actually based on. Some quick housekeeping to cover before we get into the nitty-gritty of the mechanics of this SRD. Hopes and Dreams is based on the Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 license, meaning that you can commercialize any resulting games so long as you provide credit to the original source of your rules and its creator. Now, let us take a look at the SRD itself. After starting off with a brief statement about safety, as usual, we come to an interesting section that I rarely see in an SRD, a guideline breaking down the expected roles of the player and game master. This is something that would seem to be rather fundamental, but is sometimes lacking in a lot of our games unless it's included in the sort of what is a TTRPG blurb that some people put at the beginning. I will certainly consider this breakdown moving forward, especially for more experimental designs. The document also contains a considerable amount of advice to hack the mechanics that we will discuss here in just a moment. Speaking of which, Hopes and Dreams is built on a check system that uses opposed rolls. The player builds a dice pool ranging from 1 to 4 six-sided dice. 1 is the default die. 1 more is added if the player can use their character's skill or knowledges in this roll. 1 more can be added if the player is being assisted by another player, and then a final die can come from the player spending a limited currency referred to as hope. This represents the character extending themselves beyond their normal limits. In opposition, the GM can roll between 1 to 3 six-sided die, depending upon the level of risk and any hindrances that the player might possess. The number of dice should also increase the severity of any consequences that may result should the character's roll fail. Once the dice pool is rolled and their totals are added together and compared, success or failure is determined by whoever has the higher value in their pool, with a tie being considered a success with consequences for the active player. While it is not mentioned in the SRD, I appreciate that this could also be easily adapted to allow for opposed rolls between the player characters should the narrative require. Before we leave the check behind, let's touch on 2 mechanics that I mentioned briefly: hope and hindrances. As I mentioned, hope is a limited pool of points that are used to boost rolls similar to willpower or momentum in some other games. You regain hope by succeeding in rolls against the GM where you did not already use some hope in order to increase your chances. On the other hand, hindrances are a temporary setback that come from failure consequences and may increase the risks that your character is taking when they act. For example, if your character is injured, then it may increase the risks that they are taking when doing physical actions. If you are actively wanted by the police, then maybe social or very public actions may be more risky. These hindrances are intended to be temporary, so spending some time and/or effort in-game can help you mitigate the risks and remove any of these hindrances from play. So in our examples, the player could have their character seek medical attention for their injury, lay low for a little while, or lead the police astray in order to reduce the heat on them. The game also provides assistance for the players and GM to track progress in the narrative. Short-term goals and threats are tracked through the challenge and countdown tracks. These are flexible, encouraging lengths between 3 to 13 ticks, and are open to the possibility of clearing multiple ticks due to a single action. This, of course, would be extremely familiar for any of you who have played a Powered by the Apocalypse game. Medium-term goals and threats are also tracked through a sort of clock system with the Dream and Nightmare. While challenges and countdowns are often determined by the GM, the Dream and the Nightmare are set by the players working together at the beginning of this little story arc that everybody is on. One player is selected to be the keeper of the Dream and is tasked with making sure that the group stays focused on the goal at hand. In the SRD, this role is referred to as the heart of the party. However, it's made pretty clear that this individual is not really intended to be like the group leader, more like the group's moral compass, I guess you could say. An example of a dream might be that the group wants to increase the public support for the resistance in their neighborhood. The nightmare is the outcome that the players dread could happen should their characters fail to achieve this dream. So in our example, the nightmare might be that the people come to see the group of rebels as the cause of their oppression rather than the possibility of liberation, therefore, of course, defeating their intended goal. If either the dream or the nightmare track are filled by completing or failing actions that are related to them, respectively, then the field track is cleared and the narrative shifts into the future in order to incorporate this outcome into the story. The group then picks a new dream and nightmare to work with in the next story arc, and if the dream was achieved, the characters get an advancement. This allows the player to pick a new skill or area of knowledge that their character has mastered over the intervening time, and also allows them to select a new ability. The impression that I got from looking at the original Hopes and Dreams TTRPG is that each of these story arcs is really intended to kind of last about 2 or 3 maybe sessions, obviously dependent upon like the lengths of sessions that you prefer. So these are really basically mini story arcs that would then combine together to create a larger campaign. Speaking of skills and abilities, I should briefly touch on character creation. Characters in the Hopes and Dreams system are mechanically defined by kits that should be created in order to match the setting. Each kit in the Hopes and Dreams TTRPG itself have 2 starting skills, 3 possible knowledge areas, and 4 abilities. At creation, the player then picks, obviously, the 2 starting skills, 1 ability, and 1 knowledge area in order to basically form the basis of their initial character. Knowledge and skills are used to add dice to checks, but abilities have a more narrative effect. They also reduce the size of the GM pool or modify the impact of the failures or successes on rolls to the various tracks in the game. Overall, I feel that the Hopes and Dreams system does pretty much what it sets out to do. It provides a simple, guided system in order to get the game off the ground quickly and keep everyone invested in the narrative's direction through the actual Dream and Nightmare system. A great companion to Hopepunk settings and groups, I think that it could definitely be stretched and modified in some very interesting ways that are not present in the original Hopes and Dreams TTRPG, such as including mechanics for community building or networks of NPC relationships. In many ways, I could see this being stretched in some interesting ways, particularly that might match something more of like the Gears of Defiance game, if you're familiar with that one. At least in this initial sort of grungy industrial age setting. It would also be fun to see how far the system could be taken in a non-combative or combat light setting as well. Thank you all for joining me again to take a look at the Hopes and Dreams SRD. Links, of course, to the SRD and the game it was based on can be found, as always, in the description down below. Now, go out there and spread the hope. Like, subscribe, and of course, do not forget to rate your itch purchases.
If you would like to show your support for this channel, or for the Hessens County blog, in the description down below, you will find links to the channel coffee and also the itch store. Please feel free to take a look, and thank you for your support.